Welcome to the Weekly Fix. I'm your host, Zane, and I'm joined here with.
Jacob.
And this week we're going to be talking about Loki. We finished off last week, we talked about the premiere of Loki, and this week we get to talk about episode 2 on season 1. Jacob, what did you think about the episode?
I thought it was another really, really good episode that Marvel put out. And I feel like what this episode portrayed, I feel like I was honestly expecting a lot slower of an episode, but they definitely kept the pace. And they kept it in a way, though, that wasn't just fighting and, explosions and all this stuff. It kept the pace with just like methodical thinking. And I feel like this show is really portraying how high the stakes are, especially episode 2. I mean, episode 2 was just such a high stakes episode, it felt like. So I'm really enjoying the pace at which this show is going with.
Yeah, I think it's going to really fast paced. But I don't think it's too fast. I think that's exactly what you want from a show. That it's not just dragging out for just the point of dragging on. But I also I'm really enjoying just how it isn't, like you said, just explosions and pure action, because it's a show that makes you think, and I really enjoy shows that make you think, and this one's already doing that, and I think this one was actually a little bit of a slower episode. It was a little bit more simple, because I think it's a little bit of an appetizer to dip our toe into what's actually coming later in the season.
I completely agree. And one of my favorite movies of all time, which this is not like going away from Loki, is I would honestly say it might be my favorite movie of all time. If you guys have seen it, it's called Inception. Inception was a movie that, sure, it had some great action scenes in it, but what does that movie make you do almost the whole time? You're thinking. You're thinking of, is this really happening? Are they inside of a dream? Are they inside someone's head? Inside of someone's imaginations? This show shows me so much of that. I feel like I'm always thinking about, all right, what is happening? What Earth are they on? What am I supposed to be seeing that's not being shown to us? There's a lot of things going on in the background, and there's always stuff we're supposed to be paying attention to. So obviously, if I'm a big fan of that movie, this show has really executed a lot of things that made that movie so great, and that's one of the things I'm loving about it.
Okay, so you just said you have a lot of things going on in the background that you want to think about. Did you pick up anything this week that you thought was in the background that you wanted to talk about a little bit more?
So the biggest thing, and it's a little theory that I've seen floating around, and it hasn't gained a lot of traction, but I'm starting to see it a little bit more picking up pace. And it's something I really, really kind of hope happens, because if Marvel does this, I feel like their writing is really starting to get back on track. And that is the one employee at McDonald's that Sylvie is always talking to. You see her talk to him at the very end of the episode. She asks if he needs a ride home or if his mom's coming to pick him up or something like that. There's a big theory going around right now that's actually Mobius, and that was his life before he got pulled into the TVA stuff. And I think that is just such a background thing happening, and it's really, it is a little bit out there, right? But I really kind of like the idea of it, because if you look at the timeline, the ages kind of match up. I believe that year was 1982, if I'm mistaken, or sometime in the 80s. And his age, I mean, we would probably guess what Mobius is right in his late 30s, 40s, right in that area right there. It really kind of matches up really well. And it's something that I think is a very interesting thing. And it's something that is 100% going on in the background. They've not given us any inclination to think that's actually Mobius. But it is something that I feel like this show can actually execute on, especially with all the timeline stuff. And you never know what timeline they're actually in. They're jumping around. There could be a lot of background stuff that we're seeing of characters that we're actually watching that they're not showing us yet.
Well, and in addition to that, their memories have been wiped multiple times, and
Exactly.
they get wiped when they become TVA agents. So, I mean, there's definitely there's a little bit to that could hold water. It'd be really interesting if he has a jet ski at his house that he's saving up toward. That's why he's working at McDonald's, so he can buy a jet ski. That would be pretty.
That'll be the very end credit scene of the entire show.
I don't know. Spoiler alert! If you don't want to see anything that's coming in the future, but in one of the trailers, it does show Mobius standing in front of a jet ski. So,
Yep.
We're gonna get to see. It's not in water, but he's gonna at least get to look at one.
Right.
And
But
speaking of Mobius, I think it's really interesting. The just we're gonna fast forward a little bit through the episode here, but when Loki and him take a break after Brad's kind of got under their skin and they're eating pie,
mhm.
and you know he Loki's trying to talk to Mobius about, don't you want to know what your life on the timeline was like? And Mobius is like, no, I don't want to know because I don't want to. And he goes, what if it was, what if it was bad? And Mobius goes, no, what if it was good? And
Mhm.
it's like, this whole idea of like ignorance is bliss. And if he knows he has if he knows he had a good life on the timeline, and now he's been stripped of it, I think the anger and the overwhelming emotions would be too much. And I think we're going to see a lot of that battle coming forward through the season that he's going to be struggling with, is that he did have a good life and he's going to have to deal with that underlying anger.
Well, we finally saw him kind of crack, right? Talking about Brad and that interrogation room. Brad did get under his skin.
Oh,
We finally saw
100%.
Mobius. Wait, is that the first time we've ever seen Mobius lose his cool?
Um,
I mean, really officially just crack. He cracked there.
yes,
And
I think 100%.
I think we really are going to get to see, a character like Mobius who's really shown no emotion. You see some comedy out of him, but what's he do? He does his job, and he's very good at doing his job, and that's what he likes to do. You hear him talk about that. I like working for the TVA. I like what I do. So I do think that we are definitely going to get to explore more of his emotion as the show progresses, and I just think that's going to be really cool to see. I mean, the biggest thing of a character development is seeing how they deal with things, seeing how their emotions drive them, and I really think they're starting to hit on that a little bit.
Yeah, and you say that this is the first time we've seen him display emotion, and that's it kind of just is the weight of just picking up right after season two, right?
Yep.
He had just been betrayed by his best friend Ravonna Renslayer, and he got pruned by her. I mean, she essentially killed him for all she knew,
Yeah.
and him having to deal with the weight of his best friend doing that. And then, that's still Carrie, and he hasn't got any resolution with that. Now he's here with Loki, and they're, you know, having, I mean, it's like you said, it's high stakes, and it's a lot of pressure, and it's just the breaking point. And I think that was really cool to see how much emotion is thrown into this. And we touched on it last week, but man, him and Tom, Owen Wilson and Tom, are just killing it as these
Yeah.
characters.
Yeah, they're the perfect cast, and I think this is probably one of the best duos we've ever seen in Marvel. A lot of the times one guy will kind of carry the load. I'm not saying all the other actors in the Iron Man movies weren't great. I mean, sure there were some great picks, but who steals the show that whole movie? It's Robert Downey
Robert Downey
Jr.
Jr.
Exactly, and this is I mean, we're really getting to see just some good acting from two awesome characters, and I just love it. I think they're doing such a good job. Um, with the show in general, and just those two actors, like you said, are absolutely killing it.
So I had another question for you. So, we jumped in. There's literally like 2 seconds difference between season one finale and season two, episode one. How much time passed between episode one and episode two in season two?
I haven't really been paying attention to that, honestly. I feel like it's been pretty back to back to back. I don't feel like there's been any, days off, essentially. I feel like they've really just been kind of going and going and going. You might have an answer to that question. I'd
So
like to hear.
I don't have an answer. I just have a question. The observation is, so when and it's really just, so X5 in episode one had short hair and had a like deep connection to Dox, and Dox, the Scottish judge that kind of led the attack that's going towards to find Sylvie. Um, and then the first scene, we see him with long hair on the
Yeah,
timeline. So like, how long has he been living on the timeline? How long have they been looking for X5? Because X5, we find out later, had found Sylvie and then went to live on the timeline because he knew her plan. Like, what happened?
yeah. That's a good point, and I feel like that's a character we're going to see a lot more of. I don't
You
think
think
that
so?
I do. I don't think he is a character that they're kind of done with. I feel like he really kind of has some key points that they're going to still want to get across. I know his big point was finding Sylvie. He knew exactly where Sylvie was. So I feel like there's some other stuff he knows. And as you guys, as they talked about in the show, he's one of the best TVA agents. So whether he has more to say or they're going to kind of get him back to doing what he's good at, I definitely think we're going to see more of Brad or X5. I really think he's got a potential to be a big part of the show.
Okay, I don't know if I have the same thought, and one of the reasons I think that is because you look at like the top cast for him, and you see Dox is in the top build cast, like in the top 10, but X5 Brad isn't. He's nowhere to be seen in the first, top build for IMDb. So I'm curious if this is his scene to shine. He's a little known actor, Raphael Cassel. At least, I don't know much about him, but
Yeah.
I'm curious if this is just his point. And I thought he did good. I thought he filled the role well.
Well, how often do you see with a show when they do release that top cast list? Do they don't always put who the actual top cast is, at the time due to spoilers, things like that. Sometimes.
Yeah, they do that.
Yeah, so I personally think that he's going to have a big part of the show. Like I said, whether he has more to tell, maybe there's more questions he has to answer, or if it's just going to be them, using his skills, I definitely think we'll see him some more.
Okay. We very much could. I'm just really curious about why the hairstyle change. Like, that had to be that had to be a thought. Like, that wasn't incidental. And I'm curious, did he kill other Brad on the timeline? Did he have... Because it's not like Kaminga in Eternals, where he lived an entire life and became a movie star. It's his movie. I wonder if in the Sacred Timeline, the person he found him, killed him, and then took his life. Started living it.
He does seem like a very cutthroat kind of character. You can definitely tell he cares about himself and only himself.
Oh, for sure.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. And he didn't even budge until he was literally Loki was going to kill him.
And I don't understand why.
Yeah,
especially if you're a cutthroat person, like you said. Why wouldn't he make that change?
Yeah, you would. Yeah, so I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot of questions to be answered with that character in general.
I'm excited to see how they go forward.
Well, I think this whole show has just so many question marks, and I'm not. Do you know how many episodes we're supposed to be getting?
6. Should be 6.
Okay, so we have 4 episodes left.
4 episodes.
That's not a lot.
No, it's not.
So they're definitely. If we didn't feel like the show was moving at a fast pace, I think we're really about to see some crazy things take place because they're going to have to start moving. And that's exciting for me. Like I said, we've loved the pace of it. I think there's a lot of cool things. I was super happy to see Obi back in another episode, and it really seems like he's actually going to be a key character.
He's got an entire timeline. I loved when they went to see him about the TemPad, and he was like, "Hey, is this more important than a temporal breakdown?" And they're like,
"Yeah,
nope, do your thing.
We're going to leave you to it." Yep. And I loved at the end of the episode. The character's slipping my name, but the one that they paired up with Obi,
Casey.
The other guy Casey. That is going to be a really fun little 1-2 punch to watch throughout the rest of the show. And you saw how excited Casey was to meet Obi. He had him sign his TVA workbook.
Yeah, completely fanboying.
Yes, so I think that's going to be a really fun thing to do. I think what's going to be really cool over that, relationship is Casey's probably going to have a perspective that Obi doesn't have. So I really think Casey's going to kind of solve some issues and things like that, which I think is really cool. And I just love Obi. So anytime we get him on the screen, I am all ears.
Well, he's been alone for 500 years, and the last interaction he had was literally Mobius getting off on the wrong floor and leaving immediately. So Casey's definitely going to have a different perspective.
Exactly. So I'm excited to see that one. One thing I really want to, talk about a little bit is how the show ended. One of the ending points of the show was they finally got a hit on Renslayer's TemPad.
Ooh, okay.
What do you expect to see with that?
So I expect her to be getting something for Kang.
Okay.
I think it's Victor is the Kang variant we're
I
gonna
believe so.
see.
Victor. Yeah.
So I I don't know if this is true, but on the timeline you kind of see where in time it broke off when you're looking
Mhm.
at the like overview of the timelines as they're in the TVA. And when they said they got a hit on the TIM pad, the location that was brought up was in a branch timeline. So I don't know if her being there caused it to branch, or if what she's going to find is what caused it to branch.
Mhm.
But either way, they're going to go to a branch timeline to get her, and I'm really excited for her to come back into the show. I thought she really killed it with her character, and that's just such an interesting arc that they took her on. It's going to be really cool to see Mobius re-engage with her, like it was. It was cool to see Loki and Sylvie reconnect
Yeah.
this show and see their connection. I think it's going to be even more interesting to see Ravonna and Mobius have that connection. Um, but man, I don't know what she's doing, and we know from the trailers that it looks like Victor Von Doom, or not Victor Von Doom, Kang is back in pretty far back in time.
Yeah. Well,
So
I
that's
kind of
that. Go
I
ahead.
like the idea. I feel like, I really like the idea of seeing Mobius and her get back together because as far as she knows, Mobius is gone. I think the
Yeah.
last time she saw him, she was pruning him. So I
Oh
think that's
no.
just going to be a. Am I missing?
Yeah,
Did he?
yeah. In the season finale, he came back and confronted her
That's right. That's right.
right before she left with all the information Miss Minutes downloaded for
That's
her.
that's right. Okay. Well, so it's still going to be kind of like a shock that he's really still alive because they didn't have much
Oh
of a.
yeah, they didn't have
So
much of a chance.
no, they did not. You kind of saw each other and it was kind of out. I really think a lot of her character is going to be running errands for Kang or Victor. I think
Yes.
she's going to be kind of being an errand girl, just doing what he's asking her to do, going to get to this branch to get that. And I feel like that's kind of what we're going to see a little bit maybe in this next episode is like a chase. And I think the chase is going to end with her getting back to Kang or Victor and Loki finally being able to show Mobius who they're dealing with because Loki's the only one that's really met Kang.
Yeah, yeah, and Sylvie.
And Sylvie. So I think that's going to finally be something that we've been waiting to see because I think Mobius and all the other, Hunter and all of them are really starting to understand how big of a threat Kang is. But really, until you put a face to somebody, it's like, okay, this actually is bad. You know what I mean? They know things are happening, but once they finally get to see who it is pulling the strings behind everything, I think that's just going to elevate the show to a whole nother level.
Well, I think that's 100% like putting the actual thing, and just to touch on like I think she's gonna have running errands for Mrs. Minutes or for Miss Minutes.
Yeah,
I think we're gonna get a lot of Miss Minutes next week, which I'm really excited for because I really love that character. I think that's such a cool,
it is.
just intrinsic character. I really need to get the Funko Pop of Ravonna and Miss Minutes, but that's gonna be really neat to see. And we may even get to see like the creation of Miss Minutes, which would be cool. If we're gonna get some background for He Who Remains, Kang, Victor, whoever we get to see. But that's gonna be cool. I'm really excited to see the fear of Loki when he sees him for the first time, and
Yeah.
like Mobius not even understanding who it is. I think that's gonna be like a very very cool moment.
Well, because Mobius is going to be like, it's just that guy. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
we can go get him right now, Loki. It's going to be like a fun little. I love their interactions because Loki. I feel like they did we talked about the writing all the time in the show. They've really done a good job of making Loki like this terrified, freaking out, really understanding what's happening, and Moby just being like, okay, well, we can take care of that, or
Yeah,
it's not that big a deal. Yeah,
I've seen it before.
So. Yeah, so this is I think that's going to be fun to see because their interactions, we talked about them eating key lime pie. Such a simple little part of the show, but it was so fun and intense and it's just a really cool scene. So that's going to be fun to see for sure.
Okay, so switching gears here just a little bit. There was one part of the show where I was just I thought it was like a little bit like what, and that was when they were interrogating Brad X5, whatever you want to call him, and Loki locked the prison door from the inside.
Oh, I know quite exactly where you're going with this.
And then, like Mobius is like, I can't get in, and Brad's like,
Yeah.
help me, and it's like, well, what kind of prison door locks from the inside? He's clearly like, it's clearly a fake, right?
Yeah.
Like it's clearly act. And I picked on, I like that's immediately what I said, and I was like, man, they're really playing that Brad's an idiot.
Oh, and
Like,
I was waiting for something to happen that whole time. I was like, what's about to happen to makes me realize that they really can't get out. I was like,
yeah,
Brad literally watched Loki lock the door. Why don't Brad just go unlock the door, right?
yeah,
So
like,
I was kind of hoping, they would elaborate on that, but I really think that was one of those times in Marvel where you just kind of got to look the other way.
yeah,
Oh, you know what? That didn't happen. Well, yeah, good scene. But
yeah,
yeah, that was a funny scene for sure.
yeah. I mean, honestly, like, I thought it would have been more powerful if like he knew it didn't lock, and then the actions that transpired happened after, right?
Yeah,
Like Loki
yeah,
trapping him in that little, um, I don't know, matter manipulation, time
yeah,
box
the little cube
that like
thing.
just is gonna. I loved how he acted like he didn't know how to use it, but like used it
Yeah,
perfectly. Like
yeah,
crushed the stool, and then it was perfect. So
yeah.
that
He
was a
did
really
really
cool
good.
scene. I really think the CGI in this show has been really top notch.
We can tell they actually. I think we talked about it last week, or maybe we haven't. When it's going to be a talking point later. It feels like Marvel is realizing that the fans really do care about quality. I feel like they
Oh
were
yeah,
there for a little while, just putting out stuff to put out stuff because they thought all we wanted was just, quantity. I feel like this show's really opened their eyes that, what, we're actually getting good ratings again. People are actually watching the shows again. Maybe we do need to start putting a little more into how it looks, how it's written. So I think that's really great. But one of the things I'm excited about, we're talking about Loki. I was so happy that we finally got to see him use some of his powers.
oh yeah, right, and right off the rip too.
Yes, right into it. Because Loki's got such a cool, like, power, set that he has of things he can do. He's the god of mischief. He can, manipulate people. He can make you think things are happening when they're really not. And it was really cool to see, like, that scene with the three Lokis. Mobius didn't even know which one was Loki. He was talking to the wrong one.
Oh
So it
yeah,
really is cool that even someone that's studied Loki, that's been spending time with him, Loki can still trick some people. And I really hope we get to see more of that. I was really hoping when Loki was going into, just him and Brad, that's what I was hoping we were going to see was him using his powers again.
well he
But,
can't use his powers in the
in the
TVA.
TVA, exactly.
Yeah,
So that's why I was like, I wish we could I just want more of that because those scenes I feel like really kind of get across what Loki's capable of.
yeah, and it's so interesting to see him use his powers too, because I mean, in this show, we've seen more Loki, like full strength mode, than we've ever seen before.
Yeah,
I think it was episode 4 in season 1 when the building is falling on him and Sylvie as they're trying to get off of the planet. It's slipping my mind what the planet was called, but
yeah,
as the catastrophic event is occurring, he stops an entire building from falling.
yeah,
Um, and like that kind of power for him is like it's something we haven't seen before. It's mainly what we've seen for him is trickery and
yeah,
casting illusions and perfect interpretations. But now we're seeing like matter manipulation, and kind of like force powers almost. He throws
yeah.
he grabs the TemPad from X5 and chucks it when he's not there, and then also his shadows were holding him.
Yes, that was
Which
so
was
cool.
such a cool scene with his horns and the shadows, but he's in the suits. That was sick.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's what I'm talking about. I think Loki, they've just scratched the surface of what Loki is capable of. And I've been telling people this week, I think Loki has officially cracked into my top 3 favorite Marvel characters. I
oh
just
wow.
love, yes, when I say I love this show, I really love this show. I love his character just in every way that they have portrayed him so far. I just think they've done such a good job. And he's just got so many cool things about him that I just, like I said, he's cracked into my top 3, I think, officially, because it's just so cool what he's capable of.
Okay, so is he third?
I would have to say probably third.
So
And
who's
my
1 and 2?
my other two, you'll probably be a little bit confused by, not by one of them. And I honestly don't know if I could even put these in a 1 through 3 list right now. Spider-Man is probably 1 or 2. I absolutely love Spider-Man. Just all of his movies, even going back to the Tobey Maguire days, the Andrew Garfield days, I've always loved Spider-Man. So Spider-Man's up there. And then probably the shocking one is Moon Knight. I just love Moon Knight's character. When I heard we were finally getting a Moon Knight show, I was so excited. So, and that's a character I still, hope more than anything we get a second season of, or get to see him in a movie or something, because he's just such a cool character that I feel like they haven't scratched the surface of what he really is.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's a hot take, top 3, man.
Yeah, I know, and it's not, it's Spider-Man's probably the only one in there that people would be like, yeah, that makes sense.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But the other two, I really just like, they're kind of like obscure things about them. Not many people, the average fan probably doesn't know a whole lot about them. They've only their exposure to them is the shows.
Right.
So I really like that idea of having a little bit of a different character. And yeah, that's just been one of my favorite Marvel characters. And like I said before, Loki, I don't even know who I would have said at number 3. Always been a big Hulk fan. I hate how they did Hulk in the Avengers movies. I want to see the big smashing and crashing Hulk, but
I think we'll get that again.
I do too. And why was Ragnarok so awesome? What did we got to see the big smashing and crashing Hulk? I love that.
Oh yeah.
So that's probably my top 3 right now.
I think Ragnarok's top 5 movie.
Yeah, it's great
for me.
It's great. So like I said,
top 7.
Loki,
it's 7th.
Like I said, Loki has just really elevated its just what he's capable of and all those things. So he's really just been one of my favorite characters lately.
That's awesome. And I mean, this show is just really just displaying. Man, they really cast him up. Tom Hiddleston actually interviewed for or auditioned for Thor.
Yeah.
Which would be crazy. Like, you can't even picture it, because you touched on it last week. He's the perfect Loki. But I would love to see a what if or something where he is Thor, and just see his portrayal of it. I think that would be really cool.
When he doesn't have the body for it, right? Like,
oh no,
just a little scrawny Thor. I don't think works. So I think Marvel really did themselves a favor by, what? This Tom guy's pretty good. Let's put him in our books to come back to, and maybe cast him for somebody else.
Well, Chris didn't look like Chris looks now when Chris got cast.
No, but he was still a little bit bigger. I mean, Loki
I don't know, man. If you see,
are pretty.
I mean, if you look at Loki, even in season 1, we get to see him shirtless. I mean, he's pretty built. He looks pretty similar to like a Chris Hemsworth in the movie Rush. I mean, a size comparison.
I don't remember.
Because he is pretty small. I mean, he bulked hard once he got the role. Yeah. Once he got for Thor 1, he was pretty big, but when he got cast, he was actually very skinny.
I might have to go back and look at that. I don't remember that at all.
Yeah.
Which, to be honest, I don't think I really watched much of him until Thor. That was probably really my first exposure to him as an actor.
The movie Rush is a car movie about Indy car racing, and it's it's my favorite racing movie of all time.
Okay, I might have to. I love racing movies, so I'll definitely have to put that down on my list.
So, and it's him. It's oh man, him and actually who's oh goodness, I'm losing the Zemo. Who plays Zemo?
I'm not sure.
But it's him and Zemo are the leads in that movie. Daniel Bruhl. And it's Tommy. I am losing the names, but Niki Lauda and James Hunt. Their iconic, rivalry. But man, it's a great movie.
Yeah, that might be one I'll have to go back and check out, because I'm a big fan of racing movies too.
Yeah, it's on Netflix, so.
Oh, even better. I love when there's a movie on Netflix.
That's right, yeah. Whenever you can watch something for free, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's easy to add to that list.
Okay, all right. Back to Loki. What did you? One of the things I was thinking of is, Doc's. So just with the timelines, one of the things I was confused on is why Doc's plan took so long to execute. It seems like we should have almost got that immediately after episode 1, Do you have any insight on that?
If I had to guess, I would just be. I mean, how fast did we see them take down thousands of timelines? Right. I mean, they took out. I mean, we just watched the time branches just dissipate. I mean, they were gone in seconds. I feel like probably the reason it took so long, she just wanted everything to be ready to go, and like as soon
All
as
at
she,
once.
yeah, all at once. Let's not do one, and because if you do one, they're gonna catch on, right? You might get one or two without them seeing it and really
Okay.
paying attention. I feel like that's probably the best explanation for what took so long to set up.
Okay, that makes sense. That's a good point. Now, it really did. I'm curious where their setup was, and how they knew immediately to go there.
Yeah, I
Because
feel like it
Sylvie
has to
knew
be something. Yeah, it was just like looked like a construction building kind of something that was, you know, in the works. So I feel
if
like
there
it might
was
just be.
anything. You think any significance down the road potentially?
I don't really think so. I really think that was probably just one of those abandoned warehouse type moments where it's just kind of out there, away from everybody. You hope no one knows where it is, but of course, since it's a movie or a show, everyone knows where it is, right? So
Yeah. Okay.
that's probably if I had to guess. I don't see it playing significance. Now, I do see them potentially going back there maybe to figure out something. You know, maybe there's
Okay.
something left behind. I mean, we saw the whole good TVA people there taking into custody all of Dox's guys. So I feel like we might see that. The show might start back going there. You know, Loki and Mobius might be like, you know what, let's go back there and see if we missed something. But I feel like it might have just been one of those abandoned warehouse type, you know, safe havens kind of thing. And it's just how it turned out.
I think one thing that Dox's plan and did do for us is gave us our characters more time, because that temporal breakdown was because of how many timelines they were trying to process, and since they killed so many, I really don't think they're going to have that temporal breakdown ticking clock as bad as they did in this episode.
Which is the hope, right? Because they've kind of been pushing this whole season so far, that there's a problem with how many branches are getting formed and how many things are happening. So if the writing holds up, that logically should take place.
Yeah, and we talked last week about the doors not opening. The doors that aren't opening now to the temporal place kind of look like X-Man. And what I thought was super interesting is that there's only 2 branches left that I saw that weren't getting disintegrated. And to me, that kind of plays to maybe they're saying, hey, this is Fox's universe and this is Sony's universe. And because one branch was significantly longer than the other, and they were separated in time pretty far.
Yeah.
And I thought that may be a pretty cool thing, because we did say, hey, maybe there's rumors that this is going to play right into Deadpool 3, and they do need to bring those timelines in for Secret Wars. So this may just be the moment that that's going to happen. We may be getting to see some crossover sooner than we thought.
I honestly 100% agree with that. I do think we're going to see a crossover in Loki. And even if it's just an in-credit scene, right?
Okay.
I definitely think... I have my running theory right now in my head. Season finale of Loki, after the credits have rolled, we're going to see Deadpool. That's my running theory right now. I don't know that we see Wolverine, but I definitely see Deadpool getting his first MCU appearance being at the end of Loki.
Okay.
That's my running theory.
I hope so.
I know it's a
I
bold
hope
take.
so. I don't even think it. I mean, I think it's appropriate, right? Because that movie is May 24th of next year.
Yeah.
I mean, they haven't pushed that back at all, and they just released their call sheet for what's got delayed, and it wasn't on it, so they may be pushing forward with that.
Which I think all the reports from that show were, it was pretty close to being ready to.
It was
really
the problem.
Post-production.
The problem is if the actor strike doesn't get finished, that's gonna be bad, because they're not gonna be able to do any press tours for that.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I really feel like it kind of leads into my theory. If you're worried about something like that, why not throw Deadpool at the end of this Loki show to kind of get people excited, right? I mean,
because they're clearly losing interest in the MCU from the Secret Invasion, and then Guardians had a wonderful turnout
Yeah.
for box office numbers, but the Marvels drops in less than a month, and it's looking not great on the box office predictions.
Well, it's because we just really haven't got to hear from the actors like at all. I mean,
Yeah,
I
there's no
usually
tour at all. They're not allowed to
no,
talk about it.
usually exactly. Usually we're getting to see like, oh, this was one of my favorite things I've casted or been a part of. Hyping it up. We've not got any of that because of this. So I do expect the Marvels. I really think it's going to be a flop. Whether it's a good movie or not,
Oh man.
I hope it is. Just for the sake of Marvel, just because I want good Marvel stuff. But I really feel like it's going to be. This is really hurting them. I just don't see this being a big hit. Like,
I mean,
it's definitely ain't hitting Guardians numbers. And I think it's probably what's probably been the worst run this year is probably Ant-Man, right?
yeah, Ant-Man was
And
pretty rough.
and I feel like it's going to come in well under Ant-Man. I feel
I,
like
I don't personally feel like that, just because I think it's going to be better received. Because Ant-Man was poorly received immediately, and I don't think that it should have been. I actually really enjoyed that movie.
yeah, I did too.
I thought it was. I actually think I gave it like an 8 out of 10. I had a blast with it. One of the best
I did too.
moments in all of comic book movies was in that, in my opinion, when he was in the Paradox Storm with everything that happened, and all the Ant-Mans work together to save Casey or
Oh, it's
Cassie.
so cool.
I,
Yep.
I just thought like the intention behind that was like, hey, there's not a single universe in which he wouldn't save his daughter, and I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
It was a probability storm, and every possibility was there, but in none of them did he not save his daughter, and I thought that was just such an awesome moment, and the thought behind it, man, what an awesome moment we got to see there.
Which is awesome too, because multiverses have really shown each character, no matter how many different versions of them are, they all have a core thing that happens to them. With Spider-Man, Uncle Ben dies, or we see Aunt May die.
Yeah,
For
somebody
Tom
close
Holland.
to them.
Yeah, something big, and then Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse just continue to push that forward. Showing like, hey, you haven't had this moment happen to you yet. With Miles, is now he's freaking out. My dad hasn't died. Is he gonna have to die for me to have my Spider-Man moment? Which I love that Marvel does play on the fact that you can have different hair, be a different skin color. It doesn't matter. You are gonna have these core elements still happen to you as this character, and I think it's really cool to see.
Well, I think it really just plays into, it doesn't matter, like the experiences that happen to you make you. It's not, you're not born to be something. It's everything around you is what makes you who you are. And I think that's kind of the point of it, is like, hey, just because you're born with this doesn't mean like you're going to be a superhero. And you have to go through it. You have to go through it.
I think so for sure. One question I wanted to ask you, which I've been seeing it float around a lot, it's a fun question. Do you think Avengers Secret Wars will outperform Endgame in the box office?
I would say there's a 0.2% chance that happens.
I think I'm hesitant to like even think that it could. The only reason I give it a chance though is No Way Home proved that you can play quite a large deal on nostalgia. And if Secret Wars can come out and say, hey, we're going to have Tobey Maguire, we're going to have Andrew Garfield, guess what? Hugh Jackman's going to be in this. Guess who else is coming back? Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans. There is potential. I do feel like what's going to hurt them is just the run Marvel has had lately with just the lack of people losing interest. It's probably been an all-time high with Marvel. And with this still being, another 3 or 4 years out, I believe?
Maybe I think
2?
They just pushed it to 26.
Yeah, so 3 years out. We could
Kang,
see a lot
Kang
more
Dynasty comes
lost.
first.
Exactly.
It's 4 years out, because Kang Dynasty then Secret Wars.
Yes, so we could see a lot more interest lost, but we could also see a lot of that interest come back. And I think the way we're going to be able to tell is Deadpool 3. How many people come out to see Deadpool 3? Since we know Hugh Jackman's coming back, Deadpool's already a very popular character. I think that's going to be a really good indication of how well Marvel is doing as a whole.
Yeah, with the asterisk that it's rated R.
And that too. You are going to lose a lot of, box office hits there just because parents ain't taking their kids to watch Deadpool. It's just not happening.
But I mean, even you look at Guardians 3, and anyone who really went to see Guardians 3, um, you know, I even said, hey, my brother asked, he was like, hey, do you think I could take my son to it, my nephew? And I was like, I actually wouldn't. I wouldn't take, he's 5. There's not a chance I'd let him watch that movie yet. So there already is some of that adult content in the MCU, but
Yeah.
Deadpool is another level.
Oh, it's literally probably. I don't know if we'll ever have another series from Marvel that is at that level. I mean, Deadpool is their adult, push. So
Yeah, Jessica Jones was pretty rough for that, but no one knows who that is except for the Netflix fans.
Exactly. Most of the people watching this might not have ever seen any of that stuff, so
Or even heard of her.
But yeah, so I feel like that's what I don't know. I think I'm right there with you. I just don't think the hype is ever going to get to that Endgame hype. I mean, Infinity War set up Endgame perfect.
But hey,
how could you get any more hype for that?
But with inflation, they might beat the number, but they're not going to beat the tickets.
Yeah, it could, especially with the state we're in. But
I feel tickets are $25 now.
It's crazy, right? And so I feel like Deadpool 3 will be a good indication. I have to agree with you. I don't think it's going to happen, but I'd probably give it more of a chance than what you would, maybe.
Okay, I would say 10%.
Yeah, 10. Maybe if Deadpool 3 is received really well, I could bump that up to 15. But I don't know if Marvel will ever get back to that hype level. But No Way Home is high on the top 10 movies of all time.
Oh, it is.
So, I mean, it could. I definitely think Secret Wars will probably crack the top 10. I definitely think it'll have that hype.
What Marvel has to do is they have to get their core people back, and they have to get them prominent in the leads. Like, they need to not focus on so many side characters. If they're winning numbers, now personally, I love the side characters. I could use more. Like they're releasing Werewolf by Night in color this week, which is going to be a really cool watch. And I mean, that was just such a cool project for relatively completely unknown characters. Yeah. Which I'm gonna take an over under. Probably there's 5% chance you've already watched that.
Oh yeah, I haven't watched it.
Yeah. So, Jacob, you need to watch Werewolf by Night.
Well, listen,
it's Halloween season.
If we're gonna start talking about things I need to watch, this is going to be a 2-hour-long podcast because it is a lot. As much as I say I'm a fan, there's so much stuff I miss just because of how much stuff comes out.
Yeah,
that's because of how much of a fan I am of so many things. Yeah. It makes it. I wish I wasn't sometimes. I'm like, man, I envy people that are content with their, couple of IPs that they're interested in. But I have so many. I'm like always excited for something completely different than what I'm watching right now. So yeah, we've been here a while. Talking about something we want to talk about. And like I said, I have not watched it yet. I've only watched one episode of Invincible. I loved the first episode, but we just saw the Invincible season 2 trailer get leaked. And without giving out too many spoilers, because I haven't finished season 1, did you like what you saw in Invincible season 2 trailer?
Yes. Just simply yes. I think the better. I don't think I even needed a trailer, and the reason is because of the Adam Eve project they released. The one series Adam Eve intro to season 2. It was a full episode that they released on her.
I didn't know about that.
Oh, dude, and it's amazing. It's
that
so
takes place
good.
After season 1.
No, it takes place before.
Oh, so you're talking about this plays on that. Season 2 seems to be playing on some of that stuff.
No, it was just so Adam Eve. You haven't seen her yet, but she's a character with Invincible in season 1. This is her origin story in one single episode, and she's going to be pretty crucial throughout the next.
Okay, I get what you're saying now.
So, but man, I think it's going to be really good.
Where do you rank Invincible in your top shows?
Oh, I need more.
And this is not just top shows. Period. You can you can say Stranger Things, Star Wars, anything. When I say Star Wars, you can't say Star Wars. You got to say like Ahsoka, Andor, Marvel. You got to pick Loki. Where would you put Invincible? How big of a fan are you of that series?
So I'm a huge fan of Invincible, but it's not top 10.
Okay.
And one of the reasons is top 10 generally is something that I get to watch like with people. And I really, there's only like, I watched that one pretty much completely by myself. Shout out to Troy. Troy's who told me about it, and I watched it because of him. But I mean, it was really, really good. But I really just, the shows I get to talk about, I get to experience with people. Those are the shows I love.
Yeah.
So it's just currently outside of it. And I mean, as it progresses and as we get to talk about it more and as we see more of the story, because I had never read the comics or anything, I think it could go higher.
Okay.
It was great, but it's not up there yet.
So what you're saying is once I watch it and we can talk about it, maybe it cracks into that top 10?
It could be. Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Depending on your interest, and as we talk through season 2 weekly as it drops, definitely could go up there.
Well, like I said, I've only watched one episode, but I really did enjoy the episode. I'm kind of the same way. I'm not a big fan of watching stuff by myself. That's not to mean I won't do it. I've watched so much stuff by myself just because not many people have an interest in something, but it really does elevate the experience. Like I say, Stranger Things is my favorite show of all time. Would it be if I watched it by myself? Maybe. I still love just that show in general, but getting to watch it with my wife Danielle and other people, we've talked about it. It does elevate a show, I think by a lot. Probably the biggest determining factor of if you really, really care about a show is will you watch it by yourself? And if you don't watch it by yourself, maybe it's not that great of a show, or it plays into, it's a really good show. But when you do have someone to watch it with, it just makes it better.
100%. And speaking of people to watch it with, we have some fans watching the show who asked a question for Loki. Gonna go back to this just to finish up our Loki talk that we've been derailed for the last 10 minutes. But Loki, when he's talking to Mobius eating pie, he recounts his life. And the question was, how does Loki remember his life if he was pulled from the timeline?
Well, I mean, I guess it just goes down to we haven't seen him actually have his memory wiped. Right?
So right, yeah. So I think there's two answers to this question, and the first answer is he hasn't had his memory wiped. But the second answer is what he recanted in that scene happened before he got pulled. So he got pulled at the end of the first Avengers movie, and what he recounted during that pie scene was the events of the Avengers movie. So that actually is pretty fresh in his mind. It's only like 2 weeks ago that happened. And then everything else that happens after that, he was shown.
That's a good point. He doesn't. I guess he doesn't really remember what happened with Thanos. He doesn't remember dying to Thanos.
No, 100%.
He just has been shown that.
Well, and he doesn't remember his relationship with Thor either.
No, he just remembers getting arrested.
Yep.
So
yeah, he hated Thor.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that answers it up right there. He just hasn't had his memory wiped, and he doesn't remember the stuff that hasn't happened for him at that point because of where he got pulled.
He knows of it, but he hasn't. He doesn't remember it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good question though. I feel like a lot of people, if you're, it does make sense to ask, how does no one else remember their life before the TVA, but Loki does? So that's a question I would have really never even thought about. And for a second there, it was really making me think, like, how does he remember? And then I was like, oh, he hasn't had his memory wiped, but.
Yeah, so great question. Thanks for that, Zach. And then if anyone else has questions that you would like us to talk about, you can find us. Jake, where can they find you?
Oh, you can find me probably the best place is on Instagram. I actually am a huge, big collectibles guy, so you can probably find me at Jars Toy Emporium. That's probably where I'm the most active. But yeah, that's probably where I would recommend sending me something related to a question for the podcast or anything like that.
Yeah, and my Twitter handle is probably a little bit too difficult right now to say for somebody to track down, but so we'll put his Twitter handle. Well, yeah, direct all the questions to Jacob. He's the better anyway. But we'll put both Twitter handles and his Instagram handle in the show notes if you want to find us and send us a question there.
Yeah, for sure.
But so I think that's a wrap up our Loki talk. But there is some other things that we really wanted to talk about, and the most interesting news for me is the Daredevil news.
Yeah.
Jacob, why don't you tell everybody what's going on so that we can talk about it?
Well, basically, Daredevil. What we were gonna get. What was the name of the show? It's slipping my mind right now.
Daredevil Born Again.
Born Again. It's scrapped, right? But not in a scrapped sense of they're not doing it. It seems like Kevin Feige was like, you know what? This is so bad. I'm not going to let us put it out there, and we're going to rewrite the entire show. Which, again, going back to talking about how good Loki is, I feel like this is kind of where this is coming from. I feel like if Loki wouldn't have been received as well as it's being received by Marvel fans right now, I don't know that they would have done this.
I don't know if it's Loki or Secret Invasion.
It could be.
Right?
It could be.
If Secret Invasion, I think they thought that was going to be a killer. So they thought Ant-Man was going to be, an amazing movie. They really thought they had a banger there. They were surprised by the fan reactions. And then Secret Invasion was met with overwhelming negativity. Some justified, some not. But really, the writer strike and the actor strike really gave them some time to look at their projects. And from the reports I'm hearing, he didn't get through watching the first episode before he said, "You're all fired."
This is bad. Yep. Well, and it goes to show, I think some things started coming out about Secret Invasion, about how many people actually had hands on that show.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just a jumbled mess. And it sounds like the same thing was happening with Daredevil. If I read the report correctly, it was written, and then the person that was writing it got fired, and they threw someone else in there to start it. And it's just, whenever you start doing that, we saw that exact same thing happen with Star Wars episodes 7 through 9. I really do believe if we don't have two different directors for those 3 movies, it could have been better than it was. I think you really have to have one person. He's in charge of everything. He's what he says goes, and go from there. And when you start getting a bunch of hands on things, obviously people have different opinions, and especially with as big as Marvel is, people are going to want their opinion to be shown. So they're not just going to be like, you know what, I'll let this one slide. I feel like that's probably what was happening. It's just too many things were going on.
Well, and also, it's also different because you're building off of an established, successful show, right? So all the fans that you're bringing in from Daredevil, that show wasn't canceled because it was losing creativity, it was losing fans. That show was canceled because Disney bought the rights to it. Yeah. So I think that also plays into it. Like, hey, if we're gonna remake or continue something, it can't be lesser than the thing that came before it. You can't do that.
Well, especially not with a show that was as well received as Daredevil. How many people have you heard talk about how much they like Daredevil? I feel like I don't feel like many people said they didn't like that show. I feel like it was very well received.
It's an 8.6 on IMDb, which is very, very high, and
especially
it is
for like
a
Marvel property like that, right? Like a show.
Oh yeah.
Usually they don't get crazy ratings just because it's generally for the more niche fan. The more serious fan. It's not for like the average fan. So when a show like that does have such a good following, you really cannot mess up any sort of sequel.
Oh, 100%. And we talked about, like, you asked where Invincible fell in top shows. I think Daredevil may be my 3rd favorite show of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't ever, like I said, no one ever talked bad about that show. So, and I feel like a lot of people were excited for, this might have been one of the most excited projects people were looking forward to was the Daredevil. And I think it was.
And then they hired the writers from Deck the Halls to write the show.
Well, see, there's your first problem right there. So I think we figured it out. Maybe Marvel should just hire us next time before they decide who's writing their shows, because I think everyone could have told from the beginning that was going to be a train wreck.
Well, I think everyone did. Everyone was like, "What? Like, I'm excited for this, but I don't understand what you're doing." Like,
yeah, it's just out of left field. Like, what are we doing here?
But I think it. So speaking of the news, I think it's great news. Yeah, I think it shows. We talked about hype for Marvel. I think this is how you start it back. I think you get Kevin Feige back in control, like actually involved in the projects, and saying, "Hey, no, we can't just give you an idea and let you run with it. I need to be involved in this because clearly the other execs aren't letting the directors do what directors do best. Like Sam Raimi, right? He should have had full and total control of Multiverse of Madness, and I think that would have been just a killer movie. But he
100%.
didn't, right?
Yep.
It went through 45 different rewrites from they who should not be named in all the interviews, and I don't think that's Kevin Feige. I think that's other execs at Marvel who he's sourcing out to oversee these things, and I think this shows me good faith that like he is going to get it back on track.
I think so too, and I mean, obviously he has a good track record. I mean, Marvel as a whole has largely been successful, and he's been the head guy there for a long time now. So I feel like it's probably the best thing to do is just let him control everything. We talk about Star Wars. When has it started to get back on track? When Dave Filoni was given the reins to start doing what he knew was best for Star Wars. You don't need all sorts of people giving their input. You need one guy that has a good story to be told and just let him tell it. So
Yeah.
I really think, like I said, I think, like you said, this is the right track for Marvel. And it definitely restored a lot of faith for me in what Marvel is trying to do.
Which is great to hear, because I always, I never lost the faith, because fanboy here, but it is good to see, and like you said, like one person, and it doesn't even have to be one person who is just telling the story, but it has to be one singular vision, right? And I think that's the big thing. Is like you said, episodes 7, 8, 9 would have been better if one person did it. I think it would have just been better if they knew where they were going.
Yeah, if
right?
they're on the same page, sure.
Yeah.
Have as many people on there as you want. But that's where it goes back to just multiple people having multiple opinions. It's never really going to be able to nail in on one perfect revision of something. So
Correct.
I think the less hands-on, sure, it might delay the project if you need to. I'm okay with delays. I'm a big gamer. I love playing video games. Whenever someone says a video game is delayed, I don't get upset by it because it means they're trying to get out the best product. Don't give me something that I can't play because there's bugs or the story doesn't make sense. Just delay it and give us what's best. That's how I've always been with stuff. I can wait another few months. I can wait another year. Just give us what's best. Don't just give me something that's just barely been thrown together.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of game, I haven't even been able to play Jedi Survivor yet because it has so many bugs on PC.
Yeah,
it's unplayable, and
it was so bad.
I just read, like, I went to go buy it when it was on sale the other day, and the first review was, I thought after the 7th patch that this game would be ready, so I gave it a shot, and it was like still unplayable because of the frames, and game crashed and wiped all my data that I'd played. And I was like, what?
Exactly, and that's coming from a big company, right? Like, EA is not, a slouch. They should be getting this stuff out, and, it's just, that's how I've been with everything. Just delay it. Just give it some time. Get it right, and I think you just have a better experience overall. It's easier to fix, a bad story in a sense. If they really put in a time, the game comes out, it doesn't, the show comes out, and it just doesn't, resonate with people, that's fine. But when talking about video games, when it's unplayable, it's way harder to gain that faith back of somebody than if something was just written poorly. So I hope that this is a step in the right direction for Marvel. We're actually going to get stuff right, and we're actually not just going to throw stuff together. We talked about Secret Invasion a little bit. I didn't hate the show, but there was definitely some aspects of the show that I was just like, where is this coming from? Just some stuff that just didn't make sense. So
yeah, I think
that
what
show
Secret
could have done well with a pause.
Yeah, they definitely could. Secret Invasion, I think the real issue with that one was the ending, and then also the potential. Like, that show has such potential, and it was just wasted.
It was. I mean, how long have we... Nick Fury's one of the coolest characters in Marvel. We're
100%.
finally getting a project dedicated to him, and we didn't get to see anything that made Nick Fury cool. Like, we didn't get to see him figuring stuff out on his own. We just saw him struggling for, 6 episodes?
And running across an open field completely unarmed in a firefight. Trying to roadie.
Would you even call that running? I mean,
No.
he was
He's roadie walking.
So, yeah, I mean, What they should have played on. I know Samuel L. Jackson's getting old. I get that. Play on what makes Nick Fury cool. He's not known as some, sure in Captain Marvel we did see him, kind of be an athletic type guy, but he's more of a mind. He's good at figuring stuff out. He's good at putting things together. They could have played on that so much better than they did. So I think Secret Invasion would have been one of those shows if they would have sat down, really read through the script. I think a lot of things probably would have changed. But
I don't. Maybe they don't have Gaia get every single power in the entire universe, and then also use magic, which isn't even a power; it's a skill set.
Well, and not even talk about where did they go with that? We just saw her walking off at the end and talking to what's her name, like, "Hey, I need your help." Okay, so now we just have this all-powerful being just on the loose.
Yep, and I think the final shot of that entire show was she saying they were talking, and then it shows that they had taken over millions of people in an underground bunker, and it's like, where is she going to go? I have seen reports that she's going to show up in at least one other project before Secret Invasion. I don't know what they're going to do with her.
Oh, dude, again, it's one of those things. You need to be aware of where you're going with the overall arching story rather than just one thing, because now you can almost argue she is the most powerful character in Marvel now.
I don't think you can argue it.
She might just
be. She is.
So, now we have this character that's just on the loose. How are we going to deal with that? How are we going to see them tone her powers back? That's such a tricky thing to do now, because we don't want to see her just wrecking everybody, but at the same time, she kind of should be able to.
Hey, maybe they just prune that show.
maybe they prune her. Maybe we'll just see her disappear.
Maybe they see that was...
That's what the end credit scene of Loki is. It's not Deadpool. It's her getting pruned.
Yeah, it's her pruning. It's actually Loki, just pruning She-Hulk and Secret Invasion.
Yeah. We're just gonna forget that those happened and move on.
Yeah, we're gonna play off of that.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I hope this saves Daredevil from that same fate, because Daredevil's awesome. He has a really cool story to be told. I didn't even finish She-Hulk, but from what I've heard, when he was in the show, it was actually watchable. So hopefully this saved Daredevil from that Secret Invasion fate.
I hope so. But yeah. All right. Well, that is the show today. Unless you have anything else that you'd like to round it out with.
I don't think so. Mostly just a Marvel episode, but that's kind of all that's happening. Unfortunately, I haven't watched Invincible, so I'm sure we could have talked about Invincible Season 2. But I promise you guys, watching the podcast, I will finish Invincible Season 1 before Season 2 comes out. I will be ready.
All right.
Now, does Invincible do weekly releases, or do they drop the whole show at once?
Nah, it's weekly. It's your favorite.
Okay. That's my favorite. They just gained another reason why I love the show. Because I cannot do... The only show, I've told Zane before, the only show I will ever watch all at once will be when this last season of Stranger Things drop. I will watch the entire show as soon as it drops, and I'll probably never do it again. That'll probably be it.
That'll be it.
That's just, dude, I don't know how people do it. It's impressive to me. People that binge watch things, man, even if I love something, after 2 episodes, I'm like, all right, I need a break. I want to do something else. So that makes me happy that Invincible is going to do weekly episodes. But like I said, I promise you guys, I will get to that, because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that really like Invincible. I feel like it's a very well received show. And it seems very hyped. It seems like a lot of people it was a lot of buzz around, X and Instagram and all those platforms talking about season
X.
trailer. So that's what it is now. It's not Twitter. Got to get with it.
8.7 on IMDb is what it got, with 167,000 ratings, which is that's really high.
So, like I said, I'll get there. We don't have any Star Wars to talk about, but we did see a couple. I know I sent you a leaked trailer.
You did for Acolyte,
and it looks pretty good. I feel like it was hard to watch because it's one of those trailers or those leaks that you don't know how someone is recording in that poor of quality in today's day and age. But
yeah,
it looks pretty good. So not much Star Wars stuff going on
in the dark, in their lab through people. Like
Yeah.
it's
So
been cropped.
it's understandable, but you're like, come on, just stick your phone up a little higher. Like,
Oh no,
you
just
know,
let them wait. I don't even appreciate it. Just release it. If you see it leak,
yeah,
just release the actual 4K video.
I agree. I feel like so many people just wait and wait and wait. But I did see that leak had gotten taken down. So apparently
I
they're actively trying not to have that get out. But I don't think there's much else to talk about. Invincible season 2 would probably be the only other thing. We're kind of slow with Star Wars right now. We just wrapped up Ahsoka, so unless there's something else you were
nah,
interested in talking about,
I think that's great. I think that's all I had for this week, and we'll catch up on anything else. If y'all have something that you want us to talk about, a show that you've watched in the past, or some of our favorite shows, we touched on, like we can do some rankings. Hit us up at those X uh, handles,
Instagram,
and
or
then the
Instagram.
Instagram
Yes.
handles. I'll have both of those in the show notes for you guys. So hey, thanks for listening to the Weekly Fix. We hope we catch you next week.